Now, one of the big arguments I want to put forward is cost. Now, that is something we don't talk about when we talk about nuclear. We always talk about safety. We talk about the radioactive waste, which is also very safety related. But what about cost? Now, in the latest energy tariff that we talked about a few episodes ago, the government has made it transparent what the industry insiders have already known, that energy cost now is 31.58 cents a kilowatt hour. That's the average levelized cost of energy. Once you factor in all the costs, you average out with the number of kilowatt hours produced, it is 31.58 cents. It is higher than many years ago when I was in SEDA 7 years ago, that it was 27 cents.
Oh, wow.
So gas price has gone up, coal price have gone up after the Ukraine war. But it's still okay. It's a figure that we are comfortable to pay now.
Bearable.
All right. There's other costs, your transmission costs, your electricity retail costs, but that's independent of the energy costs. But your energy cost is 31.58 cents. With nuclear, we are looking at an increase. The International Atomic Agency has put out there, you're looking at a levelized cost of energy of exceeding 45 cents.
Oh my, that's a lot
So that
more.
is a significant jump in cost for the Malaysian consumer.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Are We OK Season 2. I'm Peter.
And hi, I'm Rajiv.
Alright, so we haven't been doing this for 2 weeks right now.
Yes, and I've missed it.
That's
we used to do it
right.
weekly, but we had to take a 2-week break. You've been traveling?
Yes, I've been traveling quite a bit, and just nice though, travel date kind of fall right on the recording date.
Yeah, and when you're away, I'm here, and then when you're here, I'm away.
That's right. And over the last 2 weeks, I met quite a lot of people who actually asked me this question. They say, hey, I miss Are We OK? It seems like you'll never renew. I was like, no, there's a season 2 together with Rajiv. Right? Then, really?
But
then
no new episode coming.
No new episode coming. Then after that, I found this. Actually, our team forgot to upload it into Spotify. Yeah. So yeah, for those of you who actually has been listening to Spotify, perhaps will miss a few episodes. But don't worry, this episode onwards, we are going to get it uploaded, and we also upload the previous episode on. So do check it out, and if your friends asking, do let them know.
All right.
So Rajiv, what have got you busy over the last 2 weeks? Anything interesting?
The routine work still remains, but over the last 2 weeks, I had 2 trips. One was an MPPJ retreat to...
MPPJ retreat?
Yes, and this was like a morning to night full of meeting to discuss the next town master plan. Because we have a town master plan, but it was a town master plan that was created a number of years ago, and they are going to produce a new one for the next 10 years. So this will involve some zoning changes, which will then lead to other physical changes in PJ. And for that, we had 3 days and 2 nights of, back-to-back non-stop meetings. And so I felt it was very important that I clear those 3 days and go for that, because that will have profound impact long-term on PJ.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
As a PJ folk, right, is there anything that you can let me know that is not against any rule of secrecy?
No,
like
I think that there's no rule of secrecy here. MPPJ has been doing a series of focus group discussions with various stakeholders. And then this is somewhere like in the middle of the process where it's a lot of brainstorming among all the aduns as well as the councillors, and a lot of discussion. And then there'll be also more focus groups, discussions, and more public engagements.
Right.
And by end of the year, I think by November or December, the first draft should be put for public display, where all residents of PJ, in fact, even if you're non-resident of PJ, anyone can view it and comment on it. So to say what exactly is going to come in the final draft that will go out for public display is maybe still a bit early. We are still a few months away from that, but it's very important to have discourse and argue about what we see the future of PJ being, what we want. We had great discussions on transport master plans.
Yes.
This one portion of it is the future of public transport and how we bring better public transport into PJ, because that requires planning. Implementation by Rapid KL is the second part, but before implementation can come in is the planning and like what do we want and various other objectives. So there was in fact, it was a very heavy thing. A lot of people assume if government go for retreat, you meeting for 3 hours and then you buffet and then you relax for the rest of the day. But actually, no. Meetings were from morning to night. And I think it was a lot of brain capacity that had to be used, but that's good. That's okay. I prefer for us to be able to engage each other, because when you have 24 councillors coming from very different backgrounds, you have 7 aduns in PJ also coming from very different backgrounds and having different opinions, and then you have all the civil service. We have a lot of external participants as well. And when everyone chips in ideas into the bowl, then you start to build on each other.
Right.
And you start to reconsider your previous notions.
Right.
Like if something I may have thought of that my friend did not think of, then he could get an idea from that. But he might suggest a further improvement to it that I did not think about. I think that's where the discourse is important. So yeah, we had 10 sessions across the 3 days.
And mainly all of them has to do with town planning somewhere.
It's all about town planning.
And could you help me to understand a little bit? Because I never knew that there's such thing. And number 2 is that by the time you're coming with the last final draft of it, does it mean that as a resident of PJ or anyone that's viewing that topic, that master plan can give our comment? And
actually,
if we do that, how much of our opinion will be taken into account?
It will be taken into account, because the way we do our process here is that we do 2 stages of public display. In the first stage of public display, the openness to receive the comments is, I would say, very high. When the feedback comes in, then MPPJ dives deep into it and changes things that we feel need to be changed. It all depends on the justification of the comment.
Right.
Just because someone says, I don't agree with this, or I want this, doesn't mean that wish will be automatically accepted.
So it has to make sense.
It has to make sense. And it needs to make sense to the majority. And that's why it's great that it doesn't happen by 2 people or 1 person. It makes sense that it's done by 50 people in the room, because then it's a consensus building exercise that represents the different views that PJ has.
As a resident, or as someone who reads the document, then how do I respond to it? Do I send you an email, or how does it work?
So you can respond by email, you can respond by physical letters.
Right.
There are forms to fill up if you prefer to do the paper way.
Right.
PJ is relatively progressive. The public display normally has an online version as well as the physical hard copy.
Wow.
We don't all the big display boards in the MPPJ lobby
Yeah.
that you can go and see, and then you can fill up the feedback form. In the previous exercises, MPPJ puts out like a few hundred banners around PJ telling people like, hey, we're doing this. So come and give your feedback.
Oh, really?
But a lot of PJ people say they never notice it.
Yeah, I never knew it.
It's always in
This is the first time I know.
It's always in the newspaper.
Never mind,
It's
this time I'll
all
help you
over
promote
social
it.
media. This time you help me promote it. And come and give your feedback. So there will be 2 rounds. The first round it's targeted to be done by end of this year. Then in a few months' time, after we process the feedback, then we'll go for a second round of feedback.
Right.
And then once again process the feedback that comes from them before it becomes a gazetted document.
Right.
And this will then dictate what landowners can do with their land. What can they build? Can they build high-rise here? Or are they limited to low-rise? Are they allowed to do commercial, or must they do residential? Are they limited to industrial? And so there was a lot of debate whether the industrial part of PJ should remain industrial, and we should attract those semiconductor industry in, now that Malaysia is attracting semiconductor into Malaysia. But do we PJ want to keep the industry and attract them into PJ, or do we want to agree to the landowner's request to change it to commercial? Because a lot of landowners want to change it to commercial. And then commercial means they can build things like colleges, shopping malls, service apartment. So then we debate that. So the final outcome of all this debate will be in the first draft, and that first draft will be open to everyone.
And will there be a public forum, or just writing in emails?
You, as an individual, you write in your feedback, but as a group, you can have many rounds. I'm sure your local representative will be happy to sit down and engage your community. But if you are in a resident association, it's much easier. Then as a resident association, you call your representatives. There's a much easier platform for you to have that, maybe an engagement over tea or an engagement in the office, depending on which way. But it's always covered in the press, actually, these exercises. And so this has profound impact on what the future of PJ will look like.
Yes. It definitely sounds like something that I have to attend. Now, after saying it, I never knew this existed. And so for those of you who are watching this right now, do remember, I believe this is not just happening in PJ, but every single other Majlis Perpandan have their own version.
Everyone has their local plan. In fact, if you're always wondering, this empty piece of land near my house, what is it for? Will it be a football field forever? Or actually, is it a commercial piece of land that could become a shopping mall in the future? Or is it a land gazetted for a mosque that one day will become a mosque? A lot of times, we Malaysians do not realize that we have these local plans that we can refer to. So before you buy your house, you should check it out. You should know, like, around you, all the empty piece of land, what will come up there in the years to come.
Right. I think it can also kind of influence like what is being built ahead, right? Like last mile transport. I think that there should be some sort of a bus stop or bus route coming over or something like that, and more pedestrian walk or this kind of thing that allows to give you the space to go up and speak up as well, right?
So MPPJ has 10 consultants covering the 10 different areas of this town planning, and one of it is the transport consultant. And so he presented all the future bus routes that he suggests to complement the existing bus routes. And then we look at it and we comment and we say, like, hey, how come this area you didn't put something there, or what is your solution for people in this area and all that? And so this spirited discussion builds on each other, and hopefully that produces something good for the people of PJ when you see it in a few months' time.
So for people who are listening and watching to this, please share this particular video with your friends so that they actually know how to get involved in a town that they themselves are living in, because it's a lifetime thing, right? Yeah. Right. Most of us, even if we move house, we'll move in the same town. Yeah. We won't really move far away, right? Because your ecosystem is already here. Yeah. So that sounds like one exciting week. I definitely have a lot more questions, but if I'm going to go further, I think we can't run through some of the important topics that we have.
All right. What's the first thing you want to talk about?
All right. So today, since we're going to start and we talk about town planning, I think we should actually talk about this, which is the Urban Renewal Bill. Now, over the last few weeks, I've been seeing many of these video clips by BFM. They are interviewing YB Nga on this whole topic itself. And where the interviewer asked YB, our minister, say, hey, don't you think that this thing seems like it's going to benefit developers more than it's going to benefit residents? So to give you guys a quick context, what happened is right now we are in this urban renewal bill thing. What happened is that they are trying to go for this consent rate that is about 75% for buildings that are 30 years old. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So which means if let's say you have a particular building that's 30 years old and above, and 75% of the people within there, the homeowners, say that we will consent to a renewal of this building, then what happened is that they can then tear down the building, rebuild it, or whatever they want, right? Again, devil's in the details, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I guess that's the point that we want to talk about. Now, the biggest discussion here is this: is 75% too low a rate? Because some people feel that, does it mean that 25% of the people who disagree have no voice then? Because ultimately, if I live in this building and I fall into one of these 25 and I don't want to tear down this place. I love my place, man.
Well, I think there's maybe some misconception in jumping the gun to say it's 75% versus 25%. First of all, when we talk about dilapidated buildings, and we're talking about buildings more than 30 years old that has that lower 75%, because the newer buildings have a higher 80%, it is a case where oftentimes the owners are not reachable. Sometimes the owners have passed away and the estate hasn't been sorted out. And so the next legal owner is actually inconclusive. And the name on the land title is not the name that can sign any form because he's passed away a few years ago. Sometimes they have migrated. Somebody else is being the caretaker of the property, but the person that has migrated is like taking a long time or just can't be reached. And so that is a problem oftentimes in getting 100% agreement to do it. Yes, today if you get 100% agreement, you can proceed, but it's extremely difficult. Extremely hard to get it. Not because 25% disagree, but oftentimes it's reachable.
Not contactable.
Not reachable. You see, our land titles have the name of the owner, don't have the phone number of the owner, have no idea where the last known address is. Sometimes the tenant knows the owner, but sometimes the tenant had been banking in to a bank account. Then they realize, actually, 5 years I never talked to my landlord. Every month I just bank in. I've met residents of PJ who actually say they have not seen their landlord in 10 years. In fact, the landlord may have passed away. They also don't know. They just keep banking in the money into the account. And this is a sad case. A lot of abandoned houses that you see in PJ are also cases where you cannot trace the owner. And so that is one reality. Then the second thing is you have two check and balance mechanisms. Number one, a developer cannot just go into let's say a low-cost flat and say that as long as I get 75% agreement, I can tear down and build whatever I want. He needs to ensure that he gets KPKT's approval. So that's your first check and balance. KPKT needs to sign off on the whole scheme. Like, we are going to redevelop this area, a defined area, and what is the redevelopment going to be. And if, let's say, KPKT says this is a no-go, even though 95% of the residents agree, then it'll be a no-go. If KPKT says we hear the objections, and the objections are by 6% of the people, but they are very valid objections, and KPKT can also say this is a no-go. So that's your safeguard number one. Your safeguard number two is your local council. We talked about the town planning earlier.
Yep.
If you are a developer that comes in to redevelop, you must comply with the town plan zone for that area. You cannot come and say, I'm going to demolish all these 4-story flats and build 50-story condominiums there if the town plan does not allow for it. And so the town planning, which is also one of the sessions that we talked about in this retreat, one of the sessions was this URA and the potential sites for redevelopment and what is suitable to be rezoned for any of these proposed redevelopment sites.
Right.
Because we cannot just say that as long as you find any flats which is considered dilapidated, you can build whatever you like there.
Does it mean that if, let's say, we have sort of gazetted this particular housing area, let's say it's a low-cost flat, right? Yeah. And we say that if you're going to redevelop this, it has to be affordable housing within this kind of price range.
This is something within the power of the local council to put in the town plan. Like, I can allow you to redevelop this, but the condition is it must be this kind of housing. Or I can allow you to redevelop this. You can only do 10% commercial to support the residents, and 90% must be residential.
Right.
This can be put in. So the developer cannot just take a low-cost flat and build a new Mid Valley mega mall.
So now it makes it all the more important that if you're a resident of PJ, please respond to the master plan when they issue it.
Hey, but even if you're a resident or Subang or KL
or wherever,
pay attention to
your
local plan.
Yeah, maybe you should come up with a schedule. We should ask everyone, right? Come up with a schedule, and then if you are a Subang person, when is your master plan coming out?
You see, now with the URA, every local council is going to amend their local plan.
Yeah, man.
Because every of these URA sites need to be rezoned before any developer can come in to talk about 75%.
Wow, so if you do not respond now as a resident, you're going to be chalat lah. If let's say end of the day, the only people responding is actually, because you are unaware, the only people responding are developers.
Yeah.
Then so sorry lah.
So actually, it's not so bad. Like when MPPJ does this public display, because I can speak better for PJ, there's oftentimes 1,000 people, 3,000 people that respond. Not all 800,000 people who live in PJ will respond, but not 5 people respond.
Right.
Maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000 people who respond.
But 1,000 for PJ population is still very
small,
very
but
small.
Still got people respond.
Still got people lah.
I'll promote. You promote.
Promote.
Then this time we hope for 10,000 response.
I'll promote.
All right.
Yeah, all the other content creators out there, please help to promote this. Yeah, and then also in your own local council, get people get involved. So as a Malaysian, we get to shape our own township.
But I put on record here, I fully support this URA. If you don't have this, all these dilapidated areas can never move forward. It's so difficult to move forward if you don't get 100%. And thus, you need something like this in order to move forward. If not, they just are stuck. Now, we talk about whether developers benefit. In every redevelopment, for sure, the developer benefit. No one does business if they don't have a profit margin.
Do charity work, man.
But will they make a windfall profit or not? It depends on how the local council allows the rezoning. If the local council allows a rezoning that is too ridiculously high, then suddenly the area which had 200 flats become 2,000 condominiums. Then the developer may make a killing.
Yeah.
So this is where the controls come in, and every local council has to be careful about how they do it.
Right.
But these people, PMX has said it many times, so now cannot run away from it. He said it that it's a one-to-one replacement for the existing dwellers. So a one-to-one replacement means the first beneficiary of this is the existing owner.
That's right.
For sure. Whatever the condition of your flat is, you will get something that is 10 times better, or at the very least 5 times better than what you have now. And so that is the benefit. You come around, I will show you flats where the sewage is not working.
Oh,
Can you imagine when you flush the toilet, the sewage is not going into IWK, it's just falling off the side of your building. This is gross. Can you imagine there are many flats where the cracks are all over the structure?
Yeah.
And these are the buildings that we talk about that need redevelopment. So we have to face the fact that there are some buildings in terrible shape. And so They are like that. Every local council, I believe, has their own scoring system to say, like, which is the most critical, which is moderately critical, which is not so critical, and then for each of the ones, that how do we blend the new zoning?
That's right.
To allow it, because we talked about some projects in Shah Alam where while the flats were dilapidated, but the zoning that Shah Alam City Council was giving was too low, and then no developer can make financial sense out of it, because I have to replace 1-to-1 to the existing unit, but I only can build extra 20% units. Then the 20% extra unit cannot cover the other 80%. So then it's a financial no-go, the project cannot move forward. So trying to find that balance is important. This is where KPKT as one safeguard and your local council as a second safeguard need to play a very important role to regulate each redevelopment. It is not a blanket thing. A developer cannot just walk up to a flat and say, okay, do I have 75% agreement? And then jalan.
For me also, in principle, I agree with the intention and like what they want to do. The question always, again, devil in the details, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I think there are a number of safeguards there. The question is, how is it being executed as well? And definitely it has to be in such a way where it's a win-win, where developers will get to actually profit from it, right? Because ultimately, you also don't want to come to a position where no one wants to do it. Again, then that defeats the purpose.
Correct.
Number two is, if let's say some people were to say, okay, we redevelop this place and then we create one extra block. This extra block is only for the 1-to-1 replacement unit. Like that, then you are creating a social class suddenly, right? There's this new social class and old social class within one development. You also don't really want that. You want it to blend. I think one of the best ways to actually look at it, again, without going in depth into what possibility could happen, but the ideal is that you can bring in new fresh residents into the play. But at the same time, if let's say it's a dilapidated building and these people are from the lower socioeconomic class, they can then blend together with this, say a B40 and M40 that is not too far and not too near, and they can kind of like look up to another level of socioeconomic growth, right?
Yes.
Let's say, definitely you cannot put suddenly a B40 and a T1 lah. They'll be too far off lah, right?
Correct.
A B40 and a M40, I think it still matches.
Still can
right?
work.
Still can work. And then let's say our kids can still go to the same school, play in the same playground. There's some sort of a inspiration level going on because you expose them to another level of the society, right? So I think the devil is in the details in how they're going to execute a new township or development in that sense, right?
So actually what's going to happen in Parliament is just a tool. But then later the implementation is very heavily on what each local council does with your master plan. That is far more important to see the details there.
So I got a Pandora box that I want to open on
Please.
this, right? Which I think the last one when we talk about alcohol and the rest and vaping also we open it up, right?
Okay.
The question is this: does this undermine the constitutional right of an individual? Because to a certain extent, if I choose to live in a broken house, that is my choice.
Yeah.
But because 75% of the people decided that they're going to vote against it, and suddenly I do not have a choice to live in a broken house. Maybe it's not because I got money issue. I just happen to have my husband or child grow up there and I don't want. I just don't want.
I think this is finding that difficult balance. Now, I'm convinced constitutionally this is okay. But now we're talking about the morality behind it. Like, should the government go in without 100% consent? And I think that because you cannot develop 80% of a building, a flat, and leave 20% there, you have no choice. Now, if you talk about the right of the 10% or the 20% who wants to not change the flat, what about the right also of the 80% who wants out of this terrible condition that they're living in? Now, a lot of people who comment may not have even stepped into one of these flats.
Yeah.
But, if you want, I bring you. We can go and visit.
Just step into a hoarder's house who's disgusting together with rats and everything all. And then they choose to live there. Then you know that it may not be a best choice to give them that right to choose.
I don't know about going down that road. But this is... You're dealing with a community that has to make a decision together. So then how do you balance it? If you want to say absolute right of majority, then you set it at 51%. But we're not setting it at 51%. We set the threshold at 75 or 80%, depending on the age of the building. That means you are saying that this is quite a super majority. And I think this is where KPKT then has to listen to the minority voice and to see the rationale and to then decide based on that rationale whether there's a strong justification to shelve the redevelopment or whether the justification, the problems that they are raised could be overcome or could be dealt with, they could be mitigated, whatever concerns they have, so that the redevelopment can go forward and benefit everyone. So there is this uneasiness, but you know what? We already have gone down this road. I mean, around the world, many countries already have laws to do this. This is not something unique to Malaysia. If you talk about the right to property, under the National Land Code, the government can confiscate your house if it's dilapidated and left in a state of disrepair. The government can confiscate it. So this is not something new. From the 60s, we've had it in the National Land Code since 1965. We also have the Land Acquisition Act, where the government can acquire your land. And the only thing you can argue is the quantum of compensation. You cannot argue about the fact that government, whether you want to give or not, and which is similar to around the world. Everywhere in the world, government also has the right to land acquisition for public interest. So it is not a stretch to do this. In fact, this time is so much better than the Land Acquisition Act doesn't even require 1% consent. If the government wants to use the Land Acquisition Act, it can go ahead without 1% consent. This one needs at least 75% consent. And something's got to be said. Like, if 75% of people want it, there's a strong case there.
I mean, it's still a democracy at the end of the day. How I see it is, to give a context of why I say that is, I think if you are talking about 75%, I think it's still quite a democracy. Just like you say, if let's say someone said that I do not want to tear down my house because I have certain nostalgic feeling towards it, but if it's proven that this is structurally unsound and it's not in a good livable condition for the general population, just as if your house is filled with so much of rats, right, they start spilling out, right? MBPJ also have a right to actually come in and start making noise about it, right? Until today, we have those kind of laws.
And they must be controlled because we live in a society and our lives affect each other.
That's right. I wouldn't say that this is unconstitutional, as in like it is taking away one's right to live in a place of choice. I would say that here's where the balance kick in, right? Some people, if let's say we want to take on full extent of I as a human being have full right to do whatever I want as long as I want it based on the argument of democracy and rights, then sometimes it can reflect quite bad, because what if the person say that I have the right to chop off my own arm? And just nice that morning he woke up feeling crazy, want to chop off his own arm. Do you then stop him? And then the person sue you and you stop him, right? And then say, hey, thank you for not helping me. I woke up, hey, by the way, I want to sue you. And if you think about it, America actually kind of like happens this kind of stuff, right? And that suddenly becomes a whole crazy world altogether, a different level of crazy. So I would say that I don't think that this is a infringement of rights, but rather it is a collective democracy of agreement that this may not be the best for the society, so let's go along with it.
I mean, let's look at another area of property, so-called right. If you say, this is my house, this is my right, now I want to run a restaurant out of my house. The government won't let you.
That's right.
Your neighbors will be so angry.
Correct.
You don't have the absolute right to do everything and anything you want just because it's your property. It's your property, yes, but within limitations.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think this is something that we recognize, that it was never an absolute 100% like government cannot interfere with you because it's your property kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately we're still living in a society, right?
Yes, I think you'll be hard pressed to find any country that has such ridiculous extents of things. No, you are living in society. You need to balance.
If there is, then there wouldn't be a government to even start off with, right?
Yeah. So, but in the end of the day, the implementation is very crucial. The balancing that needs to be done by the local council and KPKT for each project is important. And there's one more aspect that we don't hear people talking about, which is the renters. Because when we talk about urban living, 30% approximately are renters. And when the Urban Redevelopment Act kicks in, the landlords are very protected, because landlord get one-to-one exchange. Wherever your location is, you get one-to-one exchange. You don't get kicked out from big fields into Ampang. You don't get kicked out from PJ all the way to Klang. You get a one-to-one replacement in the place. But tenants, this is where the local council needs to be careful. If the redevelopment is going to create a lot of high-end housing in that area where it was low-end housing before that, then you displace renters who are in the lower rental bracket. And then would they have sufficient replacement? And if they don't, then this is where the government needs to tread carefully when you talk about rezoning. You cannot eliminate, let's say for example in PJ, they cannot eliminate all the low-cost housing to the extent that there's no more low-cost housing.
That's right.
And people who rent at 1,000 ringgit a month suddenly have nowhere to rent anymore. This one also needs to be handled with care. So I can tell you, like in this urban redevelopment section of the PJ Master Plan Retreat, 20 sites were identified. And out of the 20 sites identified that, from the physical look, this may be something that urban redevelopment can be considered. Then the scorecard was given on the various aspects, and then a discussion was held. I think at most 3 will go forward. Not to say all 20 also will go forward, and not to say out of the thousands of houses, hundreds of flats in PJ, all hundreds of flats will go for redevelopment. 20 of the shortlisted one was discussed, and maybe 3, maybe 5. And it will be like that. So when you talk about redeveloping the most critical ones, then you balance the overall market. The overall market is not affected. But we shouldn't also go to the other extreme where every single low-cost flat is redeveloped into high-end condos, then all the renters will be displaced.
Yeah.
So this is another cause for concern, which I don't see many MPs talking about.
I think this is another Pandora box that's yet to be opened.
I think we like opening Pandora's
Yeah,
boxes here.
which is like renters, like you mentioned, right? And number 2, also the intention of urban redevelopment. If the framing of the mind is that when you develop, you want to gain more monetary value out of it, then that's another story. But redeveloping it as a form of maintenance or betterment of existing condition, that's another different kind of thing, which I think there's another solution to it is actually just by tightening the laws on maintaining a building, right? Yeah, because we know that there are a lot of joint management body that are not doing a great job.
Yeah, you opened the third Pandora's box in this discussion. I have actually raised a number of times, and I continue to pursue this, for the government to take over the maintenance of low-cost housing. So in the case of low-cost housing, just like condominiums, you have to have the JMB or the MC,
that's right.
which is like all the owners come together in the AGM to vote together a committee to look after the property. When you talk about high-end condo, no problem. Very, very likely they will be able to form a committee that is capable enough to make decisions and maintain the condominium well. In the case of low-cost flats, a lot of times they struggle to form the committee. Not enough residents are willing to come forward.
They're even struggling to make a living. You ask me to maintain the...
Now, if these people have the time to do it, it's okay. And some low-cost flats are well managed. There are some that win awards. The government always give awards for low-cost flats that are very well maintained. In my constituency, if you look at the Damansara Bistari flats, I would say, good job. These are volunteer residents from the B40 community, but they care enough and they do a good job. And then that's great when you have sufficient volunteers in the community. But then when you go very nearby to the Section 17 low-cost flats, no one comes forward to volunteer. You do Hari Raya function, a lot of people come to celebrate together with you. You call AGM to form the MC, you can't even get 5 people on the attendance list. And then you cannot form the management committee. So in cases where there are no management committee, which let's say in Selangor, we got the data, 500 over, about 540 low-cost flats have no management. Wow. Because they can't pull together sufficient residents to form the committee. Then the building gets dilapidated very fast. So if government can step in, and this is something I hope the government will take on, it's a heavy burden because it's a very difficult task. It's not easy to take over the management of all the low-cost flats, but that could be a very important step to improve maintenance. But when you talk about dilapidated flats, it's beyond poor maintenance. Poor maintenance is when all the lights don't work, your railing is rusty, your water pipes got problem, and those things you can repair. But I have visited low-cost flats where the structure is all cracking. Repairing that is a monumental task. Virtually the best way forward is just to tear down the building and rebuild something proper. And this is where you need the URA law to come into place. So not to nilly-willy use just because a developer wants to make money, quote unquote. Yeah, but this is where the building is at the end of life. It was built with maybe minimal standards 30 years ago, 50 years ago. And now if you want to go back in time and fault them also is a bit difficult, impossible. And you have to deal with the situation. What do you do with this block of flats that is structurally very problematic? What do you do when you can see the iron rebars coming out of the concrete and your civil engineer tells you these are all very bad signs and this building is structurally not very safe? And then when you're faced with that, you're not talking about maintenance of sweeping the floor.
That's right.
That's maintenance, making sure your garbage, color, painting the building once every 10 years. Those maintenance, you shouldn't tear down a flat because the JMB is not doing a good job maintaining it.
Correct.
But you have to come to a point to be willing to redevelop if the building is dilapidated.
So I agree with you. I think actually the first step before even talking about redevelopment, right? Actually, they should start looking into taking care of the building and maintenance first. And maybe government, it would be lower cost for the government to actually do this whole thing as well.
So
right?
I can tell you of the 56 aduns in Selangor, this has been my crusade for years. The achievement I've had from this crusade is in about over 100 plus of low-cost flats now, government has already appointed management to take over because the residents are unable to form the committee. And even in my area, I have 3 low-cost flats. My Damansara Bistari, the residents get together and they do a good job. And in fact, if anyone comes and visits, you will say this is definitely way above average in terms of low-cost flats maintenance. And because of their good job, rental there is now 1,000 ringgit a month for low-cost flat. But my 2 other flats in my area, the residents are unable to form a JMB, but because of my advocacy, the government has appointed managing agents to take over the management of the flats. And then that gives a minimal decent quality of living because someone steps in to fill that vacuum when the residents...
Section 17, that one
Section
is...
17 and one more in Section 5.
Section 17 is which one?
Facing Jaya 1.
Facing Jaya 1, that row, right?
That
with
row.
the chicken rice shop down there and
Correct.
everything, all right?
Correct.
I was just there for lunch a few days back.
All right.
Yeah, it improved quite a bit actually. Especially recently, they changed the facade a bit, they repainted it. Yeah,
it's still not perfect. I wish for them to further improve, but as you can see, there is maintenance being done, and this is because of the advocacy to get the government to intervene and appoint management agents to come and run these flats. And so now, remember I talked to you that 500 over flats in Selangor cannot form the JMB.
Yeah.
The government needs to continue this exercise so that all of these 500 plus will have their managing agents in, and every flat will have someone running it. If not the residents, an external party.
Yeah, I think just by the low hanging fruit here is actually really this. Instead of talking about URA, although URA is a very
it's
big
both
thing.
It's because some buildings need it.
Some buildings need it.
And
But
we're
I think
talking about all.
this is low hanging fruit. This one is something that you can immediately see the benefit within a year.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're talking about redevelopment, it take a while. Let's just put it this way.
Correct.
But this one is like something that immediate. And if we're talking about 500 of them without JMB, assuming that 400 of them is a maintenance issue, another 100 is really structural issue, right? You're talking about 400 different projects where maybe 100 residents each.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people's life improve. Yeah, so I would say that should be actually something that...
So I'm more familiar with Selangor stats. Total from all these low-cost flats is 180,000 units in Selangor.
See, that's just Selangor. Yeah.
That's close to 1 million people.
We should talk about this. We should do a visit to some of these flats. What is a well-maintained and bad-maintained one? Yeah. Anyway, so far, I think this is what we're going to talk about for the URA. I think to conclude it, we both don't think there is a violation of human rights. In fact, I guess in principle, both of us are in support of it. The question, again, is in the detail, and both of us actually do think that maintenance should actually come first.
Yes.
But this parallel. Yeah. So let's take a quick break, and later when we come back, we'll tackle another issue that is close to our heart, which is gig workers.
Okay, let's do that. See you after this break.
Alright, welcome back to the second part of this episode. Today, now we want to enter into the next part of this topic. It's about gig worker. Gig worker is something that has grown quite a lot over the last few years. According to World Bank's report in 2024, today it contributes about 1.5 to about 2% in Malaysian GDP and involving about 1.2 million workers. So it's a big part of our economy, right? And right now we are talking about coming up with a bill to protect gig worker. Although we haven't really seen what's the exact detail yet, but it's starting to create quite a lot of questions, right? Because there were quite a few examples that happened. Like in Singapore, at one point when they say that they're going to contribute CPF for Grab drivers, suddenly Grab actually literally said, hey, we may want to exit the market because of this. I think Spain, similar thing happened. And so now the question is, I guess for the lack of better word, it's kind of painted as, do you protect the gig worker? Or do you protect the industry? Or if you try to protect the gig worker, does it end up backfire and causing gig worker lose job? So what are your thoughts about this?
Wow, you throw a very wide question.
Yeah, it's very wide. It's just a general thing right now.
Okay.
Maybe what are your thoughts about this initially when it's being proposed? And since you know the inner workings, share a little bit more.
I have advocated for this for a long time. For many years, I've advocated for this. I think it's time that the government does something and not leave it 100% up to the market. Now, from a starting point of view, yes, you need the market forces to come into play to make it work. If the fares are too low, nobody wants to be a Grab driver. If the fares are too high, everybody wants to be a Grab driver, but you got no passengers. And so the best way to find that line that works for both drivers and passengers is where companies like Grab needs to demonstrate they got the right formula to ensure a win-win so that the service works. I think we should be very careful about interfering with pricing. And I think what's good about this bill, it is not going all out to control pricing. It just put in a consultative mechanism in, but that's a consultative mechanism in, not to put in pricing controls, which a lot of gig industry have called for. They want to set like a floor price, delivery, minimum how many ringgit per delivery, like e-hailing rides, minimum how much per the driver can earn per ride. That may be a bit risky to the industry, causing the platform to shrink. And if the platform shrinks, then the workers also lose out. So it's not to the workers' benefit. But let's look at some of the benefits. The first one is the SOXO contribution. Now, I love that. I think it's timely. And SOXO contribution before this was a lump sum that you pay every month. So when you talk about paying a lump sum every month, the guy who works 10 hours a day, 25 days a month, he earns maybe 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 ringgit. The lump sum is very manageable. If he decides he wants the protection, he pays for it. If he doesn't opt for the protection, he doesn't pay for it, but he may regret it if he gets into an accident. Now, it's compulsory, but it's not compulsory as a lump sum because not every gig worker is working full-time. A lot of them are working part-time. So if you work 3 hours a day, if you only work 7 days a month, only on your off days you work, you don't work, you have a full-time job, then how much should you contribute? How should SOXO structure it? And finally, I think what the government has done is to use a percentage rate. So every time you earn something from a platform, that percentage goes to SOXO and it gives you the coverage. Because you work a lot, you pay more SOXO, but you also are under more risk because you have more chance of getting into an accident, right? Compared to a guy who's working less. So I think that's very fair. A very fair system and a timely system because protection is needed. I mean, you can always add on your own private insurance on top of it, but this gives you the mandatory minimum amount of protection. So I like that. And then the second thing, which I also have called for years, is the tribunal, because platform today have all the autonomy to make decision. Grab today will decide that, if you make customers uncomfortable, I take you off my platform because I don't want my e-hailing drivers to be driving in a way that makes my customers uncomfortable. Now the question is, who's making the arbitrary decision and is there a room to appeal? Now, if you talk about part-time, if let's say you're truly doing this as part-time, if you're taken off the platform, it's not a very big loss to you. If you talk about someone who has multiple options, you take off one platform, you can go to another platform. But oftentimes, I think you can summarize that you don't really have that many options in Malaysia. If you talk about e-hailing, it is very, very much dominated by Grab. If you talk about food delivery, Grab, Foodpanda really dominates. If you talk about parcel delivery, Lalamove really dominates. And if you are a guy who invested in a lorry to do Lalamove, and then suddenly for some reason, because of whatever reason, you are struck off or suspended, then, oh my God, my whole livelihood is threatened. I can't just take my lorry and go to Grab. So what do you do then? Do you have a third-party tribunal where you can argue your case that it was an unfair dismissal? Now, employees have that. Peter, today if you fire one of your guys and if they're unhappy, they can take you to the industrial court. And if the industrial court says that, you are unfair in terminating, you have to pay the back wages and all that. But what about gig workers? What's the protection for them? So this is something I really support. Not to make it difficult for the companies, but just to be fair, just to give the right to be heard by a neutral party when you feel something unjust done to you. A lot of people invested in the new Axia or new Beza to drive Grab full time. A lot of people invest in a pickup truck or a lorry to drive Lalamove. And so these people will be stuck if you suddenly terminate them from the platform. But let's say the company shows, look, these are legitimate things, This guy is behaving very badly towards female passengers, and that's why we cannot allow him. Then I'm sure the tribunal will side with the platform and says like, dude, come on, man. You can't do like that. You violated the terms, so you have to go out. Let's say the tribunal finds that the company terminated you without like giving you a chance to explain yourself, and then when you explain to the tribunal, it's a fair explanation for whatever the dispute is, then at least you get a chance to be heard. And I think that is something that is necessary for justice.
My personal take on this is, I think, again, devil in the details, depending on how much protection what we're talking about. If we're talking about like the ability to just give them EPF or SOXO, I think I'm fine with that. And I think that should be, because I've seen so many cases where at the end of the day, a lot of people who actually run freelance, and because the money comes in not in a regular basis, they can't save for retirement, and I think that's bad. Right?
Yeah, which I think should come in the bill. They should put in the EPF. They put in the SOXO contribution. I think the EPF should go in as a percentage. 11% for employees, right? So 11% of your Grab earnings must go to EPF.
Yeah, I think that is something that is
they should consider.
That should consider, and I don't mind. I think in terms of the termination part, that's where I'll be a bit more careful with it. The reason being is that being a business myself, one of the main reason of hiring a freelance is because you do not know how long do you need this person for. Yeah, and generally because I do not know, and I want to have the full right to terminate whenever I see it as deemed fit for my business. So to give a very simple example, maybe I've been thinking about starting a delivery division of my business, and I just want to give it a try, right? So I give it a 3 months thing. So I hire a couple of freelance, and after I find that it doesn't work out, I should have the right to be able to close that department down and just say, hey, I don't want to have any unnecessary thing. Because when you're an established company together with proper permanent employee, I can't just terminate like that. I need, just to terminate, I need a lot more resources to terminate. Like making sure that my IR proceedings are correct. I have a proper HR consultant to come in and talk about it. Then give that another 3 months just to wind down. I'm actually losing more money, right? So it will make it harder for people to try out businesses, I would say. Yeah, or either even to scale their businesses and move the businesses fast. So I would put it this way, I would disagree with that part. Simply because it will make it harder for a business environment's sake. But how do we then create an environment where at the same time freelancers are also somewhat protected? Yeah, so I think the best way, in my opinion, will be EPF and SOXO. That would be two of the easiest way. Or if let's say one are getting them protected, then draft out a certain level of clear laws, right? Like, okay, if you have someone under your freelance, then it's treated as you can terminate the person, but maybe give 1 month notice. You know, that kind of thing? Something more clear.
I think this is not so much of terminating, like you say you want to set up a division for delivery and you hire 3 guys freelance. This is not so much for that. This is more of the platforms. So like the platforms, people turn on and turn off the app whenever they want. So like the thing is, I got 100,000 drivers on the app, and then today I just arbitrarily cut you out because I say you violated customer safety. The thing is, you say, hey, wait, God, I never violate customer safety. Or today I terminate you because I say your delivery is always late. But then you say, actually, where got late? The thing is, you have nowhere to say, hey, actually, where got? Because when you are taken off the platform, it's not about downsizing your business. I think that's a different set of problems, but this is when you are just cut off the platform. Or they cut your fee. They give you a financial penalty and you have no way to appeal the financial penalty.
So here's where, right, it comes out to the next part of it. Because if you think about it, if I'm a big business like Shopee, my own Shopee Express, or like, let's say I'm a Grab. Let's say in the near future, in 5 years, you are talking about fully self-driving vehicle being allowed. Then naturally, as a better business model now, I don't really need that many riders. I mean, for business purpose, if let's say I used to have admin and today I have AI that run through a lot of admin, do you then create a law and say that, hey, you...
No, I think
so
retrenchment
you get what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
So how do we tread between these two? Because it's a bit difficult to tread suddenly, right?
I think the thing is not about limiting your change of business. If what I see in the law is not about limiting how you change a business. If you, let's say you want to put autonomous vehicle on the road to serve your customers, it doesn't prohibit you from going that direction. It doesn't compel you to, like, every Grab driver must get a minimum 2,000 income a month. It doesn't go to that extent. But what it goes is more of, if you argue an injustice, if you say you are terminated without fairness, or you say your fee was cut, and you have nowhere to appeal that thing, this is where it has the platform to review.
Right.
But
More
it doesn't
HR helpline kind of thing lah.
something like that. Because right now, all you can do is like appeal through a machine. You don't have nowhere else. What else can you do? If you're a Lala Move driver and let's say they cut your fee because they said for whatever reason they cut off your fee, you cannot appeal anywhere. You just have to bite the bullet and carry on. This is one of the challenges that those people in the gig economies who ride on big platforms face. And so I've had constituents come to me with this problem who I only hear one side of the story.
Oh, really?
Yes, I've had. But in situations like this, when they want to appeal, they have nowhere to go to appeal. If payment was suddenly withheld, right, where do they go to appeal? If you have an argument about delivery, the parcel goes missing. You may say that I was supposed to pick up the parcel from this location. The customer said, I put it there. But when you arrive to pick it up, it's not there. Then there's an argument. No, you actually took it. No, I actually didn't take it. And then if the platform decides to penalize you financially for it, where do you seek recourse if you want to seek recourse? Doesn't mean the tribunal will always side with the driver and not the platform. I think the tribunal has to prove itself to society to be fair. I think if the tribunal has starting to build a track record of not being fair, that's a different problem. But you got to give a new tribunal a chance. I think the principle is we just want to give a chance for a mediator to come in the question when there's an argument. Now, this is a case of a giant. All the platforms are giants versus the little man who is a lorry driver, bike rider or car driver versus the platform. There is not a balance power dynamic. That's why I feel for the little guy and want to have the platform. But the other aspect which the bill doesn't go far, which what some of the associations representing the gig workers wanted to go further, is controlling prices. And I think that's risky because that will turn off the platforms.
That's right.
And when the platforms are turned off, or if the platforms have to comply to a price set by the government, like minimum 7 ringgit for food delivery, suddenly the amount of people ordering GrabFood and Food Panda will drop. And when that drops, the riders lose their income. And then the platform may find that they don't make enough money, they may exit Malaysia and focus on Thailand. So these are maybe where we want to be a bit careful, because that equilibrium with all the gig economies about the supply and demand of both the provider as well as the customer. And you cannot just like government coming to interfere with the pricing may put everything in haywire. Look at the car service. We had taxis where the government controlled the price, and taxi service by and large was not working out for people. And that's why when Uber and Grab came into Malaysia, they could take off. Because there was a need for the service, but the government controlled pricing just didn't work. And when the free market set the price, it worked.
I would say that I totally agree with you. It should be the last resort where government interfere into pricing, because that leaves very little room for innovation. And most of the time, it actually backfires.
So I think on the first part, protection for workers with the SOXO, good job. And the second part, not stepping and overreaching into price control, good job. Maybe the third part, room for improvement, I would urge the government to put in EPF.
Like maybe no need full 11, just 5% also can.
Start with something
lah.
Okay, so what's next, Peter? Any other issues that attracted your interest these last few days?
All right, let's talk about another one more that relates to people as well, which is the medical app for price comparison. So what happened is recently government has actually came out with this particular app and say that like, hey, we want to have this price comparison thing lah for medicines. And what's interesting is this: 80% of GPs believe that the app for price comparison of medicine will not lead to fair competition, but it will lead to a price war that keeps driving down prices. Now, this is quite an interesting logic, right? Do you think that we should actually have a price comparison app for medicine?
I mean, I think a price comparison app is something free market should allow. I mean, if you want to do a price comparison app for car repair, you want to do a price comparison app for groceries, you want to do a price comparison app for medicines, why not? I think that's something that benefits consumers. So, in principle, I support it. I'm sorry, doctor friends out there. I know a lot of you are very uncomfortable with the way things have been going the last few months. But actually, when it comes to anything regarding price transparency, there's actually good in that.
I think it's actually a good thing. The truth is, many private clinics make some of their money from marking up. Actually, most of them Right, marking up on medicine is actually what the easiest way to actually earn money as well, because consultation price is actually controlled, so they can't really make that much money of it. Yes, there's the other part of argument, doctors should be paid more, okay, but I think that's a whole separate argument altogether, which should be fought for, okay. However, I think this is just a natural evolution of the market. I mean, think about it, you have things like Shopee,
Yeah.
which are also comparing the price between different supplement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're buying the supplement online, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it actually leads to a more efficient economy, and it's actually good for consumer in this sense. Now, there's this question about fear. They say that then people may actually self-administer themselves with medicine, or it will destroy the business. Now, destroying the business, I don't think so, but I think it's going to force innovation. But self-administering just because the price of the drug is cheap,
I think the self-administrating is already happening today. I mean, you go to the pharmacy, you buy your medicines that either your friend told you, your auntie told you, your grandmother told you, or your own experience tells you, and you self-treat your flu, you self-treat your various other pains and sickness all the time. I think enough Malaysians do that. And I think a lot of times the pharmacies also will advise you, and maybe you should take this, maybe you should take that.
Maybe you should take these instead of these, because these are the same kind of compound inside, right?
So self-administrating medication is already the norm. But I do understand the frustration of doctors when you control their consultation fee, and now you're suppressing the other half of their income. So their revenue is the medicine and the consultation fee combined together.
That's right.
So now you shine the spotlight in the name of consumer interest on the medication. Then you're making the consumer realize, oh my God, the Panadol that I get from the doctor costs so much more than the Panadol in the pharmacy. And maybe I just pay for the consultation fee and go to the pharmacy and buy my Panadol, go to the pharmacy to get my cough medicine, and go to the pharmacy to get all the other medication, because now with these apps, it's easier for me to compare and to realize, hey, actually maybe I don't want all this medicine, or maybe I will take these 2 medicine from the doctor and these other 3 medicine I go buy myself in the pharmacy.
Yep.
So that may be the fear from the doctors, that this will become the new trend of the customers that go to the clinic and not the customers. The customers that self-medicate don't go to the clinic anyway lah. So how do we address this? I think in all fairness to the doctors, the price cap on the consultation fee should be lifted.
Yep.
If the doctor has a very luxurious clinic, creating exclusive environment and wants to charge more money, let him. He has to do his market study and ensure that that's works for him and works for his patients. And then if the doctor is setting up shop catering to the B40 community and is going to keep his price at a manageable level so that he doesn't chase away all his patients. It is not a situation where you can just raise your price arbitrarily just because the government raised the ceiling. I don't think many doctors will just jump their price up. I think some will adjust their price upwards, but how much they adjust the price, it'll be case by case. And depending on how specialty that the practice is and how much loyalty based it has and whatnot. There are so many factors that the doctor has to think about before adjusting his price, just because the government allows him to adjust the price. But if you want to start clamping down on the medical price thing, the medicine price thing, okay. I mean, transparency is great. I also would love to have transparency when I go to see the doctor. I would love to know that, how much all the medicines cost before I decide to buy the medicine from the clinic. Or maybe go over to the pharmacy to get medicine.
It's like going to Pop Mart like that, Sometimes when you go clinic, you don't know what's your bill at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Ping open 200, ping open 300. It's a Pop Mart
But okay, let's say you know that if I go in, consultation fee is this much ringgit. Okay, 60 ringgit consultation fee. The balance, then I should have the option to say that, okay, you are charging me 20 ringgit plus 30 ringgit plus 20 ringgit plus 70 ringgit for the 4 medicines. Then I decide whether I want to buy it here or I want to go to the pharmacy and buy it. I think that is the very fair thing to give consumers, that transparency for them to decide. Right. I know a lot of doctors will be offended by me saying this, but I think it's time someone also speaks up for the consumer here.
Yeah, I think like there are certain countries that actually what happens is that the doctor gives a diagnosis, they write a prescription, and then the patient actually goes to the pharmacist and actually gets it. And the pharmacists have the right to even tell you like, hey, maybe there's a better drug rather than this because this is the diagnosis and there's a better drug with a better efficacy. Yeah. Do you want to choose the generic or the original or what? Right? Like that, right? Yeah, I think that should be a better way of doing things. And yes, I totally agree that at the end of the day, we should also at least revise or lift up the cap for consultation, because I think that's super outdated. Quite.
Let market forces also come into play.
Correct. I mean, you think about it, right?
Yeah.
You go and do a haircut, also 150. The doctor treat you $60. I think I can understand why is it so discouraging, because not to say that a haircut is worth less than a doctor, right? But just talk about financial investment to acquire the two skills.
Yeah.
There's definitely no ROI if you're going to go into that. And it's not surprising that many doctors are going into aesthetic, because aesthetic is one of the probably one of the very few medical fields that there's no price control, elective, right? So I think that there should be a revision in terms of doctor's fee and so on. And in fact, many of the doctors that I know who are actually very good at what they do and very fair, whenever I meet them or when I go and see them, sometimes they are the ones that will tell me, like, hey Peter, you don't have to get a medicine here, because I can tell you getting it in, say, Big Pharma or something like that is actually cheaper. Yeah.
And a
So
lot
just
of
tell me
times
upfront.
maybe the cost for the doctor to buy the medicine in small quantity may be higher than the price in the pharmacy. So in my way, he just advise you to do that if he wants to.
That's right.
I think to each their own strategy. You got thousands of GP clinics, and let's give them the freedom to do this. Can we invite the doctors who are listening to the show? If you want to say something on this topic, or you want to contradict us, or you want to enlighten on a different point of view that we have not talked today, send us a voice note or send us a video note, and then we can see how we can respond to that in the coming episodes.
Ideally, there's a mixture of GP and hospital doctor lah.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Yes.
I tell you know what's cool or not? If let's say GP, right? If there's a pharmacy who's willing to tie up with different GPs, and when I send my patient over to buy medicine from you, I get a small cut lah.
Why not?
See? Then you don't have to buy medicine yourself, you don't have to mafan yourself, all those kind of things, right? And you still get to earn, right? But that one is a different kind of story lah. But I guess the point is that when there is a lack of resources or situations, right, it forces you to be more innovative, and that's how industry can grow together. So I guess both of us are on the same thing, agreeing on it lah.
Once again.
Right. Now, let's move on to one more topic that I know you have quite an opinion about, but I don't have big opinions about, right? Which is in terms of nuclear power.
Oh, wow. Indeed. So yes, I love the energy industry. I spent some time, a couple of years in SEDA, the Sustainable Energy Development Authority. So that gave me a lot of insights into the economics of energy. And the economics of energy is very important. So there has been a push for nuclear energy recently. It was in the 13 Malaysia plan that the government pledged that by 2031, we will set up our first nuclear power plant. The Deputy Prime Minister talked about it recently, about the various things that Malaysia has to comply before setting up the nuclear power plant. There's been support from various advisors, specialists out there in the market. Certain politicians have also come out in support of it. It seems like the train is moving quite forward. And I understand the appeal that a lot of them are talking about, because now we want to decarbonize electricity. 90% of our electricity in Semenanjung, Malaysia comes from coal and gas. And the reason why we use coal and gas is because it's reliable. Like you turn on the power plant, it will just deliver electricity. The coal will always go into the furnace and the electricity will always come out. Solar is great. Solar is cheap. But the problem is solar is every time a cloud flies over it, the power dips.
That's right.
Wind is not common in Malaysia because the wind speeds in Malaysia are low. But like in China, in Denmark, wind is heavily used, but once again, the wind comes and the wind goes, and your turbine will speed up and slow down, and it's intermittent. So we need this reliable, they call base load. And what can replace the base load of coal and gas in a way that doesn't spew out so much carbon into the atmosphere? And we want to fight climate change, and that is important. But I also am very worried of the other side of things, that we may or may not be ready. A lot of people are very worried about the nuclear safety. What if an accident happens?
I think maybe as a rugged, right? I think every time whenever we talk about nuclear, we always imagine Chernobyl, Fukushima, all this kind of thing, right? So,
and a lot of Malaysians have no faith in Malaysian maintenance culture.
Oh yeah.
and so I don't want to cast aspersion over the energy authorities. We have nuclear regulators that look into this. The disposal of the nuclear waste is also very important.
That's right.
You're going to dig boreholes into the ground.
We're already not handling normal rubbish very well. Yeah, I'll just put it this way. We are not handling normal rubbish very well.
Yeah.
And now we are talking about nuclear waste. So actually, these are the few concerns that...
It is very valid concerns. I think the government needs to give more clarity into how safety will be different when it comes to nuclear compared to the general safety overall, because a lot of Malaysians may not have confidence in that. But beyond the usually talked about arguments about safety and nuclear waste, this one is quite common. You know, with Linus also, the whole conversation is the radioactive waste. And the radioactive waste in Gebeng,
Somehow all the examples you're giving me, right, doesn't make me feel more confident about nuclear power in Malaysia.
I think my role here is to put some cautionary energy out there. Like, let's not move so fast into nuclear. Let's think carefully. Let's think carefully. The whole world is not moving towards nuclear. Germany is an example of turning backwards from nuclear, decommissioning nuclear power plants.
So what's the argument for and against?
Okay. Now, one of the big arguments I want to put forward is cost. Now, that is something we don't talk about when we talk about nuclear. We always talk about safety. We talk about the radioactive waste, which is also very safety related. But what about cost? Now, in the latest energy tariff that we talked about a few episodes ago, the government has made it transparent what the industry insiders have already known, that energy cost now is 31.58 cents a kilowatt hour. That's the average levelized cost of energy. Once you factor in all the costs, you average out with the number of kilowatt hours produced, it is 31.58 cents. It is higher than many years ago when I was in SEDA 7 years ago, that it was 27 cents.
Oh, wow.
So gas price has gone up, coal price have gone up after the Ukraine war. But it's still okay. It's a figure that we are comfortable to pay now.
Bearable.
All right. There's other costs, your transmission costs, your electricity retail costs, but that's independent of the energy costs. But your energy cost is 31.58 cents. With nuclear, we are looking at an increase. The International Atomic Agency has put out there, you're looking at a levelized cost of energy of exceeding 45 cents.
Oh my, that's a lot
So that
more.
is a significant jump in cost for the Malaysian consumer. Now, there are a lot of things that we want to prefer. For example, we want to switch from landfills to waste to energy plants, incinerators. But there's a huge cost increase. And when it comes to energy, we can decarbonize by going nuclear. Let's say we get all the safety things sorted out. Let's say we are able to manage the procurement process. The Energy Commission does the tendering or the request for proposal in a very competitive, transparent manner between the Koreans, Russians, Americans, and all the French and everyone who has the expertise to build a nuclear power plant, and produces the lowest possible price. And if you benchmark that price in the world, then you're looking at this 45 cents a kilowatt hour. We are still going to increase the average cost of electricity of our grid. And before the government goes head first into this and then later like, oh no, what we're going to do, we must also be prepared to deal with the tariff question. Are we, for the sake of decarbonizing, going nuclear to decarbonize, willing to raise the price of electricity by 40%?
Yeah, man, it's a lot.
We're not talking about a 5% increase in electricity. And are we able to find ways to make the nuclear power available at a cheaper price? That, maybe by learning from all the experiences that the Koreans and the Japanese and the French and the Americans and other countries who have done nuclear extensively, can we find a way to lower the cost without compromising safety standards to maybe make 45 cents drop to 40 cents or 38 cents? But at 45 cents, it is going to have a profound effect on our tariff. And that's something that we shouldn't run away and we should put in the center of the debate, because there's always a trade-off. When you want to go clean, then price goes up. If you want to go clean without the price going up, for example, solar and wind, then you affect stability. So there's the three factors when it comes to electricity: your decarbonization, and then your stability of the grid, as well as the price. And that's something that I hope our Minister for Energy, our Deputy Prime Minister, Fadila, will also take head on. Yeah. Because this is something that I want to sound the alarm. I think no one's talking about this. And I think this is very worrying, that we start to get all caught up with this, like, oh my God, this is sexy. Malaysia can get a nuclear power plant. We're talking about having these small modular reactors instead of a big nuclear plant. That's not the crux of the debate. the technology is established. I don't doubt it. I mean, countries are running nuclear power plants safely for decades. This is not like a brand new technology. So that part, actually, to me personally, I'm not so afraid.
The cost is crazy though.
But the cost is crazy. Now, the thing is, like in Germany, electricity is 1 ringgit if you convert 1 ringgit a kilowatt hour. So the nuclear power at 47 cents or 52 cents is okay. Then the rest is the grid cost and whatnot. But that's because Germans are used to paying a higher electricity tariff. Malaysians pay a very low tariff compared to most of the world, compared to the Americans, compared to the British, compared to the Japanese. So our wiggle room is less.
That's right. Question is this: Malaysia is filled in natural resources, and if you look at the case of Sarawak and Sabah, there are plenty of hydroelectricity that can happen, right? Yes. And recently there's a question about hydrogen, yada, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Why not go into that?
So far, most of these are constrained by cost. Like for hydro,
it still costs what?
It
Nuclear?
still costs. But some hydro proposals that I have seen cost as much as 1 ringgit a kilowatt hour.
Huh?
Because if your mountain is a nicely shaped bowl that can contain the water, you need to put very little concrete to make the hydro dam exist. But if your mountain is not shaped nicely, then you need to do a lot of civil works for a dam to exist. If you need to spend a lot of capex, then that needs to be paid back. So the levelized cost of energy over the lifespan of the hydro plant over 30 years would increase. And so Bakun Dam in Sarawak, very cheap because the natural environment, the natural terrain was so suitable that very little money relative to the amount of electricity that can be created a lot of cheap energy. Whereas if you talk about building a new hydro in Kelantan or Pahang today, very expensive because we have already exhausted the natural terrain. Right. Our Temenggong, our Kenny, Cameron Highlands, we pluck all the low-hanging fruit. If you want to build a new hydro, very expensive. But the thing is, if you're going to increase the price, then we should consider doing more of other things like biomass power plant. You have in European countries, they do secondary forest. You pluck up forest plantations. You purposely plant the forest to burn the trees as biomass energy, and then that cycle keeps continue. So you release carbon when you burn the wood, and then you sequester the carbon back by planting the forest and replanting the forest. So biomass energy in Malaysia today is around 40 cents a kilowatt hour. But it's very more expensive than the coal. So we don't do massive biomass, unlike Denmark. Denmark does a lot of biomass power plants. Philippines does a lot of massive biomass power plants. But Malaysia, we have so little biomass power plants because it's more expensive than coal and gas. But if you're going to go all the way to nuclear and spend 46 cents a kilowatt hour, in the best case scenario, maybe even 50 cents a kilowatt hour, then maybe you should consider more biomass in the spirit of getting clean energy. So I think this is where let's have more experts coming out and talking about cost, because in the end of the day, the competitiveness of our industries rely a lot on the price of electricity. That's why all these manufacturing associations will come out and protest every time the government wants to increase tariff. But also the general population, the 9 million households in Malaysia, also very price sensitive to electricity. So the government has to be very careful every time the tariff goes up. Yeah. Last time tariff got up by 14% or so. Want to think twice, want to be very careful. Yeah. Make sure the B40 don't go up. So when you talk about nuclear, as of today, it seems like the price is not on our side. But in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, things could change. But for now, we need to be very careful. So that's what I want to bring up, because I noticed that when they debate this is one factor that is often overlooked and not discussed.
That's a good one. I never really thought about that part as well. Yeah, all I can think about is Chernobyl, Fukushima, and safety.
Which is also a very real concern. So we need to consider both of this.
Like I say, my problem is that we are not even handling normal waste that well.
Yeah.
So I have some concern about handling such a radioactive waste.
Yes. I can understand
that. Yeah. So having all said that, I think truly, when we talk about this particular subject on nuclear or not, I would say that there are also some pros to it. Mainly, if I were to look at pros of it, is on the skill transfer wise. Because Malaysia actually do have quite a number of nuclear scientists already, but most of them actually work, I think if I'm not wrong, near Bukit Unggul there. They are quite some, like, because time to time, when I pass by there, I can see, it's like Malaysian nuclear atomic research, that kind of thing, signboards, right?
And a lot of them have to go work overseas.
Yes, correct. Yeah, actually, in fact, one of my friend's brother is a nuclear scientist, and end of the day, he just worked there for 2 years, and most of the time sent by government overseas, right? So I think those skill transfer, that could be a thing. And another part of it is looking at the way the world is, there could be a chance that coal and gas will increase in price over the years. And then by then, maybe the question about nuclear being more expensive may not be
an issue in a few years'
anymore.
time.
Yeah.
We have to see the trajectory.
Correct.
But if the world continues to decarbonize and use less and less coal and gas, supply and demand dictates that the price will actually drop.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we shouldn't decarbonize. I fully support decarbonize. In my work in SEDA, did a lot to promote biogas, biomass, hydro, and solar.
Yeah.
In fact, in 2018, under Yobin, when I was there in SEDA, was the biggest jump in solar. Leapfrog the country to where it is today, that solar is commonly installed in factories, in houses, and whatnot. So, decarbonization is important, but we have to decarbonize at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
We need to carefully manage the price
That's
of decarbonization. Right. We cannot just let the electricity bill run amok just because we want to decarbonize. We have to find that balance.
Yep. I remember reading Yobin's book on, I didn't read full, a few chapters. There's one part that I thought was very, very smart. One thing they should put it out there was, actually in order to decarbonize, it's actually very costly. And sometimes more developed nations, they push this agenda on developing countries like us, where in order to develop our economy, we still need to heavily rely on dirty energy. The reason being is because it's cheaper. Right. And so then there's this balance between cost versus decarbonization. And she kind of suggested that we as a developing country need to actually be more careful about how we decarbonize. Not say don't, but the effort needs to be in such a way where it is realistic to our people and our economy as well. Yeah, because it's very different, right? I mean, it's just like Singapore spending $1, them buying iPhone and us buying iPhone is a totally different thing, right?
Totally different.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing just by the sheer power of currency and so on. Yeah. So I think that that's a very, very valid argument, and I can see that where that also kind of stem out from, I guess it's all part of during those days.
It's the same thinking that we both have. Solar is cheaper than gas. And we want to have solar. But we talk to all the great guys. And the great guys say that we can take in up to about 20+% of solar in the system without destabilizing the grid.
That's right.
So, okay, let's ramp up the solar to that 20-something%. Let's not ramp up solar to 70% and destabilize the grid, because I don't think Malaysian consumers can accept blackouts.
You don't want suddenly hujan and
blackout. We cannot have the grid tripping all the time. So let's not do solar at 2%. That's a waste, because our grid can take more solar than that. So let's ramp up the solar to the level that the grid can take. Then we look at hydro. The big dams, no more economics of scale. But the mini hydros, where you don't build a dam, you put the turbine in the river. There are enough rivers where the trajectory of the river is stable enough and it doesn't have a lot of civil engineering costs to put in the mini hydro, and we can get projects running for less than 30 cents a kilowatt hour. Oh, that's competitive with coal and gas.
No, why not go with that?
We promoted that. I was part of SEDA promoting that when I was in office in SEDA.
Yeah, I was at Kuching. I looked down. Wow, all rivers, man.
Yeah,
Here's all river.
Okay, but Sarawak got too much hydro.
Okay, too much.
We'll be talking about the rest of Malaysia. Yeah. We don't have that very expensive cable connecting Sarawak to Peninsula yet.
I think they're more expensive. The wastage of electricity will cost more than the electricity.
So when you talk about Semenanjung, we still have rivers in Perak, Pahang, and Kelantan that we can put in more mini hydros. Right. Sabah should put more mini hydros in. Yeah. Not all rivers can put in mini hydros, but there are still untapped rivers that we can put in mini hydros. Like, we need to focus on those kind of decarbonization that the cost is not running very far from the coal and gas. So your benchmark is 31.58 cents. If anything you're doing within 35 cents and below, I think that's okay.
Right.
We as consumers can take it, and it's good to decarbonize at that price. But if the decarbonization cost is more than 40 cents a kilowatt hour, I think we need to be a bit careful, because we want to balance the cost to consumer, the cost to industries versus the decarbonizing, especially as a third world country. We are not the biggest polluter. We are only 0.7% of the carbon emission in the world. And if America, China, and Russia and the other big economies are not doing their part, I don't think we should punish our consumers at this point of time.
Agree.
If they do all their part to decarbonize, then we also can, on taking the same moral, equal ground, then we also play our part. But if they are not doing it, not to say we also shouldn't do it, but let us decarbonize in the areas, and I've given you examples, where we can manage the price.
All right, fantastic. So that's all for today's episode.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
It's a great conversation today as well. My last question before I go, is there a possibility of putting a mini turbine in Sungai Kayu Ara or Sungai Penchala? Kidding.
I would love to. But
Maybe you'll end up cleaning the river,
but
then it'll increase the property value there as well.
That would be really cool. Now the thing is, speed of the water too slow.
Too slow. All right.
So we need the speed of the water to go up.
Okay, jokes aside, thank you very much, everyone. If you have any comments, do leave it down below. And at the same time, if you are a doctor and struggling with this whole conversation and you want to let us know, please reach out to us via our Instagram. Yeah, it's RWOK, our Instagram. We're going to attach the link into our Instagram below and leave comments down there as well. Share with us what you think, and hopefully we get to hear from you on your opinion on this whole medical costing, because there's going to be more and more development on it. Recently, I myself have attended some of the workshops by both Bank Negara and MOH talking about their initiative. So yeah, please do reach out. Looking forward. See you guys next time.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.
And MOH talking about their initiative. So yeah, please do reach out. Looking forward. See you guys next time.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.